The rain fell in relentless sheets that night, turning the Oregon highway into a glimmering river of reflections. Headlights smeared against the windshield, wipers thudding in a rhythm that matched the lonely thoughts running through Ethan Cole's mind. He had worked another 10-hour shift on a construction site, his hands sore, his eyes heavy. It wasn't the first storm he had driven through alone, but something about tonight felt heavier, lonelier. His son, Aiden, was probably already asleep at home, curled up with the dog and the blanket that used to belong to his late mother. It had been 3 years since she passed, but every storm reminded him of her. The way she used to hum softly when thunder rolled through the valley, the way she believed that even the worst nights could bring new beginnings. Ethan had tried to hold on to that belief, but most days it felt like trying to grab water with his bare hands. He turned the heater up, exhaling tiredly as the smell of wet asphalt seeped through the vents. The road stretched endlessly ahead, black and silver lit only by the steady beam of his headlights. Then, as he rounded a bend near the old gas station, something caught his eye, a small shape by the side of the road. At first he thought it was debris, maybe a fallen sign. But then he saw movement. A figure, a woman. She was holding something close to her chest, shivering under the rain. He slowed instinctively, heart tightening. The sight became clearer as he pulled closer. A young woman in light blue scrubs, soaked to the bone, clutching a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5. Her hair stuck to her cheeks, eyes wide and frightened. The child's small hand gripped her mother's collar as if afraid to let go. Ethan braked hard, pulling his old red pickup to the shoulder. The sound of the rain filled the cab as he lowered his window. "Hey!" he called over the roar of water. "You okay?" The woman turned her head slightly, blinking against the rain. She looked exhausted, not just physically, but soul deep. "My car died," she shouted back. "No signal. We've been waiting for hours." Ethan didn't hesitate. He got out, letting the cold hit him like a slap. "Come on, get in the truck. You'll freeze out here." She hesitated for a heartbeat, protective instincts flashing in her eyes. But then the little girl coughed, and that was enough. Ethan opened the back door, helping the woman guide her daughter inside. The child climbed in quietly, her small face pale and tired. "Thank you," the nurse said softly, dripping rain onto the seat. "I didn't think anyone would stop." "Most people don't," Ethan replied, offering a faint smile. "But I've been where you are. Hop in. We'll figure it out." Once they were settled, he turned the heat up, letting the cab fill with warmth. The little girl tucked her knees under her coat, pressing against her mother. The nurse's name, he soon learned, was Lena Parker. She worked double shifts at a nearby hospital. Her car had broken down halfway home after picking up her daughter, Aurora, from a friend's place. They talked softly as he drove through the dark, the rain still hammering against the roof. Ethan could see her exhaustion in the way she kept glancing at the child, making sure she was warm, as if the world might fall apart again at any second. He offered to drive them home, but Lena bit her lip. "We don't really have one, not yet. I was staying at a temporary place, but the rent went up again. I was heading to my sister's in Portland, but—" She trailed off, eyes glistening. Ethan didn't ask more. He just nodded. "You can stay at my place tonight. Guest room's clean and my kids got plenty of extra blankets. It's not fancy, but it's warm." Lena looked torn, clearly not used to accepting help. But one look at Aurora, already half asleep against the seat, decided it for her. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means." By the time they reached his small house on the edge of town, the rain had softened into a mist. Warm light spilled from the porch lamp as Ethan unlocked the door. The smell of old wood and coffee filled the air. Inside, Aiden's toys were scattered on the living room rug, and a few half-drawn crayon pictures hung on the fridge. Aiden himself appeared at the top of the stairs, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, who's that?" "This is Miss Parker and her little girl," Ethan said, setting down the umbrella. "They're staying the night. Can you grab a blanket for them, bud?" Aiden nodded sleepily, vanishing down the hall. Within minutes, Lena was drying off in the small bathroom while Aurora sat wrapped in one of Aiden's dinosaur blankets, smiling shyly as he handed her a mug of warm milk. "Thank you," she whispered. Aiden grinned. "It's okay. Mom used to make that when I was sick. It helps. When Lena came out, she found Ethan in the kitchen, heating soup on the stove. She hesitated at the doorway, her voice quiet. You really didn't have to do all this. He glanced over, smiling faintly. Maybe not. But if I didn't, I'd never sleep right again. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was soft, full of unspoken understanding. She sat at the small table, watching as he poured the soup into 2 bowls. They ate quietly while the rain whispered against the windows. That night, Lena tucked her daughter into the guest room and stood for a long time watching her sleep. Aurora's breathing was steady, her small fingers clutching the edge of the blanket. For the first time in months, Lena felt safe enough to breathe. She found Ethan sitting on the porch, a mug of coffee in his hands, staring at the rain-soaked yard. She joined him without a word. For a while, they just listened to the night. She's a beautiful kid, Ethan said finally. Yeah, Lena smiled faintly. She's all I've got. Ethan nodded, eyes distant. Same here. That was the beginning. Days turned into weeks, and what was meant to be one night stretched into something neither of them expected. Lena insisted on helping around the house, cooking, cleaning, even fixing Aiden's school lunches before her shifts at the hospital. Ethan, stubborn at first, eventually stopped protesting. The children grew close quickly. Aiden taught Aurora how to ride his old scooter, and she taught him how to braid hair, which he practiced on the dog until Lena laughed so hard she nearly dropped her coffee. There was laughter again in the house. Real laughter, the kind that hadn't lived there since before the storms, before the loss. Ethan found himself watching Lena sometimes when she wasn't looking. The way she smiled softly when Aurora laughed, the way she bit her lip when concentrating, the way she carried strength even when she was clearly exhausted. One evening, after a late shift, Lena came home looking pale. She sat at the table and buried her face in her hands. It's just too much sometimes, she murmured, trying to be everything every day. Ethan didn't speak. He just placed a hand on hers, warm, solid. You don't have to do it alone anymore. She looked up at him, eyes glistening. You don't know what that means to hear. Months passed, and spring came quietly, bringing sunlight and new color to the small town. The 2 families had become one in all but name. On Saturday mornings, they'd all pile into the pickup and drive to the farmer's market. Aurora would run ahead, her tiny hand gripping Aiden's, while Lena and Ethan walked behind, sometimes brushing hands, pretending not to notice. It wasn't grand or romantic in the way movies showed it. It was gentle, steady, built from shared mornings and late-night talks and the small trust of 2 people who had both been broken before. One night, a year after that storm, they sat on the same porch where it all began. The kids were asleep inside, a faint glow spilling through the curtains. Crickets sang somewhere in the dark. Lena looked out at the yard, quiet for a long time. Do you ever think, she asked softly, that maybe everything happens for a reason? Even the bad things? Ethan took a slow breath. I used to think that was something people said to make themselves feel better. He turned toward her, eyes reflecting the porch light. But now, yeah, I do. The silence that followed was soft and full of meaning. Lena smiled, a small, grateful smile, and rested her head on his shoulder. In that moment, it didn't matter how much they had lost, or how hard the past had been. What mattered was that the storm that brought them together had finally passed, and in its wake, something beautiful had quietly taken root. Ethan glanced down at her and whispered almost to himself, Guess some storms bring the right people home. Lena looked up, eyes bright. Yeah, she said. They really do. Inside the house, Aiden stirred in his sleep, mumbling something about pancakes. Aurora rolled over, clutching her stuffed bear. The night outside was calm now, the rain long gone, leaving behind the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. And in the small house at the edge of town, 4 lives intertwined not by chance but by the quiet grace of compassion, the kind that changes everything, without ever asking for anything in return.